Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Wednesday, November 25th, 2020, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Well, it's Wednesday, and that makes it a campaign discussion day. Not a world building day. That was yesterday. GMing tips are tomorrow. Campaign discussion. And we've opted to look at the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide Appendix O. Encumbrance of standard items. Right? Yeah. Good old DMG. It's not a huge appendix. It's not, there's not a lot of controversy, I don't think, in, there's always controversy, right? You could probably say that this item or that item should be considered weighing more, weighing less, encumbrance in gold pieces. That right there. If there's any controversy, it'll be in this column, I suggest. But I mean, look at all these items that are in here. There's quite a few more items than you would find in the player's handbook. A belt weighs the same as 3 gold pieces. I don't know that I've ever seen a belt depicted in medieval fantasy that wasn't a sizable, hefty leather strap with a buckle, but only 3. Backpack, 20. I mean, backpacks today are pretty slick affairs, but they're generally nylon or canvas or something. I think of a medieval fantasy D&D world kind of backpack as a big leather affair with buckles and extra pouches and pockets on the side so that you can keep things somewhat organized in some way, but with a huge empty middle for just shoveling treasure into it, right? So 20 for a backpack, 3 for a belt. Maybe those are in line with one another. A large pouch. A large belt pouch is half as encumbering 10 as a backpack. Does that seem right? I mean, a small pouch is half again. So if you're talking about how much room it takes up and what is required space-wise, part of the idea is not just how much it weighs, but how bulky it is, what it takes to move around with it. So perhaps because a backpack is behind you, out of the way, not maybe that makes it not that bulky, and therefore its weight is... See, the whole thing about this is that the gold pieces in and of themselves are actually almost like the weights you would use on a scale to figure out how much something weighs, right? They're chunks of metal. So when you talk about encumbrance, which is supposed to deal not just with mere weight, but with how awkward, how bulky, then you get into this weirdness when you're measuring it, again, with gold pieces instead of something maybe a little more vague, like call something an encumbrance unit or something along those lines. You would think that would be a way of distinguishing it, because it's got to be its own thing, right? I mean, you're confusing the issue when you just say gold piece. It had to be a discussion at some point for these guys, for Gary and the editors and the other people that were contributing to all of this information they were compiling. They could not have been happy with that. It's, maybe everything else they came up with just turned out to be more confusing. Large metal-bound book. 10 times, as in 10 times the encumbrance of a backpack. Metal-bound book. So it's got huge metal hinges on it like a door, and it meant to be protected from damage. Oh, if you get zapped with if it's metal bound, I was going to say a lightning bolt, but maybe it shunts the electricity away so it doesn't fry the pages. Maybe a metal-bound book is meant to be safe from fireballs or falling in a pit of acid. I don't know. Some of these gaming tropes, right? They're, you wonder how they can fantastically even suggest that the physics allow for someone to climb back out of a pit full of acid, right? And then have something make a saving throw and get a plus. Just not need to save. What do we say about a large metal-bound book? Hard boots, soft boots. They don't distinguish here between high hard boots and low hard boots, which are basically ankle boots rather than boots that go up past the knee. You would think there'd be some distinguishing between the two. 63 times. Hard boots, 3 times the encumbrance and gold pieces of a backpack. Man, I'm glad that started with B, because we get to keep going back to it. Bottles, flagons, various types of bows, caltrops. I think most people know what those are, but they're basically those 4-pointed metal pyramids. They're just 4 spikes fashioned together in 4 different directions, basically in the shape of a pyramid, so that you can spread them out on the ground, and people will have to be careful. They can't just rush through the area. You can walk right through them carefully, but if you're rushing or chasing someone around a corner and you come rushing around the corner and somebody has spread a small bag full of caltrops, you're probably going to step on a few of them. Those are going to puncture your soft boots. Candle at 5 seems out of place compared to the items of similar encumbrance, Coriolis Storm says, and I agree, right? 5. Now, I suppose, I mean, there's all sorts of shapes and sizes of candles, right? You've got ones that are tapered off. You've got square-based candles. You've got round candles that can be 4 inches across and burn for a day or two. I suppose this is meant to be some sort of standardized candle that you would use in place of a torch for a limited light source for a very limited time. It's got an open flame. If there's any sort of breeze, this thing's going to blow out, of course. But if you're just quietly working on picking a lock, and you only want so much light and just in a concentrated area, if you don't have a bullseye lantern, you want to put away the stones of continual light, you just have this small candle. And how big is a small candle? Well, you're not going to carry around a 4-inch diameter, foot-tall candle. It would just seem to be unwieldy. Plus, if you're going to carry around something that big as a candle, you might as well carry a torch. It's not going to be any bigger, and you're going to get more light out of it, and it's going to last longer, I would think. Be less likely to extinguish. So they must be talking about a smallish candle. Well, it's not a birthday cake candle, obviously. Or maybe it is. Maybe it isn't much bigger than that in their minds. But if you had something about the size of a stick of dynamite, an inch diameter and 8 inches long, 6 inches maybe, 8 inches, that would burn a fair long time, I would think. I mean, we're not talking about modern paraffin here, right? We're assuming that candles are fairly crudely made. But there's another thing, right? Some candles have to be made from better materials than others. Even in a medieval fantasy setting, there must be a chandler, a candle maker who makes the best candles in town, in the capital of a large empire. Just somewhere, if you lined them all up, one of the candle makers somewhere in your universe is going to be the best candle maker, and somebody's going to be the worst. But 5. All right. All of these things, right? They just feel more and more arbitrary the more you think about them compared to one another. 1,000 to 5,000 for a large, solid iron chest. Well, that is 5 to 10 times larger than a small, solid iron chest. Well, solid doesn't mean it's a brick of iron, obviously. So it's hollow, not solid in that sense. Solid means tough to break into, right? It's not just iron shod wood. It's actually encased in iron. Is it cast as a box, or is it iron put around a framework of wood? Small wooden, large wooden, both, excuse me, all these things, they put a range on them, which is interesting. No standardization. Why not arrange for the candles? Well, I can arrange for a candle. No. One set of clothes, 30. Okay. Half again as much as backpack. Cord. 10 feet of cord. Like clothesline weight. Right? Not enough to use as a climbing rope. It's not thick enough, first off, right? Good enough to tie someone up with, though, I suppose. Use it as a leash. If you manage to bring along a small pig in the dungeon so that you can have it roam ahead of you and trip pit traps. Was that always the... it doesn't mean it has to hurt the pig. You can make a harness out of one end of the cord and have it walk 5, 6, 7 feet ahead of you, and if a pit opens up, the rope tightens so he really doesn't get choked or fall because it's a harness, not just around his neck or anything, right? Don't want to lose that pig at the first pit trap. Crossbow, heavy and light. 80 and 50. How's that? Okay, we've got bows, regular bows up at the top. Composite long bows are 80, and so is the heavy crossbow. Well, I don't necessarily know if I completely agree with the numbers they've chosen, but I like that those numbers compare with one another. Short composite bow, light crossbow. In my sense of how large and how wielding them might feed into the number they need to choose for encumbrance, I like the fact that those two are relative to one another. Yeah, the same, relatively. That's what I'm trying to say, I suppose. So that feels all right. Crystal ball. Base sand wrapping. All right. 150, eh? I don't know that I know exactly how large our pseudo snow globe is, but a crystal ball is probably a decent sized sphere made of solid crystal glass. Not as big as a bowling ball. As big or maybe slightly bigger than a bocce ball. 12-inch softball. Clincher. Crystal balls the size of a Chicago clincher. For those who aren't around Chicago, 12-inch softballs are called a clincher, colloquially, because you play without gloves, so you have to clinch, you have to catch them and throw them and whatever. A lot of fun, a lot of jammed fingers in the clincher league of softball around the parks in summer in Chicago. A lot of... If you don't open up your hands, a hard hit 12-inch softball can definitely jam up some fingers. Which, of course, is the worst part, is it makes it difficult after the games to pick up your beer. I did say after the game. So there's some standard there. Right, Hobbsy? We're looking at encumbrance of standard items here in the Appendix O of the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. Comparing things to one another. Flasks, empty and full. Okay, now here's something that's interesting. Empty is 7, full is 20. So that assumes that the liquid, you put liquid in a flask, I guess you could put some sort of sludge or grease or other unguent, but let's assume a liquid. That assumes that the liquid is, in and of itself, 13 encumbrance. So a full flask, what do you think, Hobbs? What do you think, Coriolis? A full flask is the same encumbrance, 20, as a backpack. So the basic argument here, and I'll reiterate it for anybody who's just gotten here, is how do we justify the idea that encumbrance is given in gold pieces? Well, it's meant to be. Encumbrance is meant to be not just weight, but bulkiness. How awkward is it to carry, or to transport, or to utilize? I assume utilize in its in the standard way you would utilize it. You know, how tough is it to pull a flask out of a pouch? I don't know. It's interesting. I don't believe they were ever happy with this entire system. Gems 1 to 5. Grapnel 100. Hand tool, an auger, an awl, 10. Hammer. Does that include hammers? Small hammers like you use to drive a stake into a vampire? Helm 45. Great helm 100. Alright. Holy water, potion bottles 25. So a full flask is 20, but a potion bottle of holy water is 25. I guess I always pictured those things as essentially the same, but maybe flasks are meant to not necessarily be glass. Do we want flasks of oil to be glass, though, so they break on impact? Liquid is pretty heavy, Hobbs said. I personally don't use it and never did on the encumbrance. Yeah, I'm of a mind that you just speak of encumbrance in generalities. If somebody is overreaching, taking advantage of the fact that you're not really paying attention to encumbrance, and you've said so even, and do we carry? How much can we carry? Does that in part though nerf strength, or is strength a busy enough ability score with all of its relationship to combat that the fact that it's tied to encumbrance is maybe not that big a deal? Horn 50. Large jewelry 50. So we got a big old hulking necklace, same as a horn. That's such a one of the sons of Gondor might blow as he's taking arrows to his torso in defense of some hobbits that aren't even Frodo and Sam. So we brought these extras, right? Why are they? Frodo and Sam have gone now. We don't really even need the extras. Small jewelry 1 to 5. So they're equating that with gems, right? Gems are 1 to 5. Small jewelry 1 to 5. Lantern. So here I don't know if you need to break this out a little more. If you're bothering to do encumbrance at all, 60, 3 times the encumbrance value as a backpack. So saith this table. Then a lantern is 3 times the encumbrance of a backpack. Are we talking about a hooded lantern? Are we talking a bullseye lantern? Are we talking about some sort of inexpensive candle within a box kind of lantern? A lot of work to do there. Mirror, musical instrument. Obviously, that can go all over the place, right? There is an asterisk. It does say musical instruments include only large, bulky instruments such as lutes and drums. So if you're carrying around a piccolo, that's not 350. Piccolo would probably be about as much as a candle. Candles were 5. Pole, 10 foot, 100. Purse, 1. Whereas a small belt pouch is 5, but a purse is 1. All right. They're making some distinction between one and the other, right? Much smaller. Quiver is 30. Is that full or empty? Rations, iron, standard, iron rations, tight, freeze-dried, salted pork, whatever, is a lot less bulky. Trail mix and whatnot, a lot less bulky than standard rations, which is just basically emptying a plate into a cloth and tying up the corners, taking it with you. Robe or cloak, folded and worn. So that's interesting. Folded cloak has a higher encumbrance than a worn cloak. Twice. So anytime what if it's just strapped onto your backpack or inside your backpack? A folded cloak, 50, when a backpack empty is 20. I guess cloaks are meant to be serious clothing articles, something you can wear in very cold weather. Well, that's a thing. Rod, rope, 50 feet. Large sack, small sack, 20 and 5. Light horse, heavy horse saddle. These saddles are pretty solid, right? Saddle bags. Saddle blanket, the pad, 20. Scroll case. Well, they had to put something in here when it came to saddles. Yes, nerf them all. Right on, Hobbsy. I don't disagree. They had to put all the, they don't have the bit and bridle in here, do they? Tack. But they do saddlebags, blanket. They do want to make sure that if you're going to be using a horse and adding a bunch of treasure into its saddlebags, that you know how much this horse is already carrying just in its regular accoutrement. Scroll case, bone or ivory, 50, but leather only 25. Hey, here's a nifty thing. I'll have to remember where I got this. Let's see if I can show this off. Can you see the design etched in this thing? So this thing is a dice rolling pad, and down this end is a zippered center, and you put a set of dice in there, zip it up, roll it up, and it's meant to have the appearance of a leather scroll case, right? pretty cool. I don't know. I saw this thing on Amazon somewhere. Dice scroll case. Probably look up something like that and you'll find it. It was under $20. I don't know, 17, I think, something like that. And and only one color was left available. I think they had red, black. This one's dark blue, like a navy blue. I snagged it. I wanted to see what it was all about and see if it was something I should chase down for the game store. Which, by the way, after a recent talk, unlikely even to reopen in January, given the way the numbers are going. This can change. We'll see what happens here in Wisconsin. It's pretty bad as far as that goes. We're unlikely to open until probably somewhere down into spring, because I don't see much change until then. If they start coming out with vaccines and spreading them around by then, we'll have to make a choice once again whether to throw caution to the wind and open up, or wait a little longer, because it's a little safer to do that. And who wants to get 5 feet from the... You know, I saw a guy watching a football game the other day, and a guy started celebrating like 15, 20 yards before he got to the end zone. And there were people that weren't that far behind him. But the worst part is, you start goofing around like that and you drop the ball when you had a touchdown, and if it winds up costing you the game, that's just ridiculous. There's an old expression, run through the finish line. Right? Don't start celebrating before you get to the end zone. You know what? Once you get to the end zone, I'm a fan of the old adage, act like you've been there before. Don't act like it's the first time you ever got there. Tapestry, obviously, big range on that. Tinderbox, it's a small little thing, right? Just flint and steel and a little bit of gauze or some sort of tinder in there. Torches, one torch, 25. So if I get a bundle of 10 torches, I got 250 in encumbrance. That's interesting. Wand. You would think the wand cases would be similar to the scroll cases. No? No, they're a little bulkier. But we've bone or ivory 60 compared to 50, leather 30 compared to 25, and we've added a box, a wand box for 30. All right. Maximum weight a normal strength person can carry and still move is 1,500 GP. Certain items not included when figuring encumbrance. These include material components, unless large and bulky. Any helm but great helm. If the character has any armor. One set of clothes. So we're ignoring our thieves' picks and tools as well. Hobbs, you hear that? Many other things will be bought and found, but it is impossible to list them all here. The encumbrance of most items not on the list may be inferred by comparison with objects similar to them. Thus, a decanter of endless water will encumber as much as a bottle or flagon. In some cases, no equivalent may be found on the table. Such instances require the judge to decide. Many people looking at the table will say, but a scroll case doesn't weigh 2 pounds. The encumbrance figure should not be taken as the weight of the object. It is the combined weight and relative bulkiness of the item. These factors together will determine how much a figure can carry. As I said at the top, it really would have been probably a good idea to not use GP as a measure, since the GP is a chunk of metal and really can only be expressed in weight, a coin. So, yeah, they probably needed a separate thing. And I don't know. I don't I've got to figure when when you look over this list and stuff, you've got to figure there's a lot of arbitrary calls being made as they're adding these things to the list. What stuff do we add? Well, we don't want to have 5 pages of table of charts just delineating everything. So let's get one of these and one of these, and you know what? Let's do the flagon because that'll cover this other thing, or a number of other things. And then throw in the values on them. Somewhere they started. They did a first thing. Did they go down the list? Did they start as we did when examining that list with backpack? Was that their first call? How much should a backpack encumber somebody? Somebody said 12. They made an argument for it. Or maybe it just popped into Gary's head and he just wrote it down and decided that was enough. But then, of course, he doesn't extrapolate all these other things himself in a way that is obvious to the reader, I don't think. Because obviously we just went down the list and there were all sorts of things that, when you reason them out, seem like they're off, different than they should be. Anyway, I could get into this big old example, but I suggest people just pop in and read this wonderful example for themselves, because it's just going to open up a lot bigger can of worms, I think. Anyway, I think we're done for the day. So why don't we just say thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for popping into the channel. Thanks for chiming in on the stream chat when you had a chance. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. If you're not going to be around tomorrow, happy Thanksgiving to you. I hope you and yours, those that you've been isolated with, can share the time together without it just seeming like yet another day. There'll be some football on. Kind of a Thanksgiving tradition for me and mine, but of course, I don't live with me and mine anymore, and although many of them are within driving distance for a holiday like this, I won't be. I'm adhering to the isolate this year so that next year we can all be together. And I got myself a roast. Went with the beef instead of the turkey. Make a nice big roast, cook it up. Have leftovers all weekend long. Probably some roast beef sandwiches and all of that. Probably spend some time brushing up on a few things in InDesign. I want to work up a layout for that old school zine that I've been talking about earlier in the year. I think it's time to get that done. We're getting on the brink of the 20th anniversary of Creative Mountain Games, and I want to put out an issue 0. I think I've determined that I want there to be an issue 0, a freebie. First one's free. And then we can start off 2021 with the quarterly, if it seems like people like it, like what's in it, like how I did it. Then we can set it up as a quarterly in 2021. Start that as volume 1, issue 1s, 2, 3, and 4. Volume 2 for the following year. I like that numbering convention, and I like the idea of giving away something for the 20th anniversary. And I think an old school zine leaves room for a short article about the 20 years of Creative Mountain Games. I don't know. I don't know how big an article, but there'll be something in there about that. Well, if you are around, I will still do the show. I'm going to be here anyway, so what the heck. GMing tips on Thursday, building adventures on Friday, GM reviews on Saturday, rules retrospective on Sunday, weekly news and announcements on Monday, cartography and world building on Tuesday, then back around the horn to campaign discussion next Wednesday. If you're catching up with this on YouTube, thank you very much. Please subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up on videos you watch that you like, and feel free to make constructive criticism, comments, and or attaboys. Say what you want in the comment section. I mean, if it's just being nasty, I'll probably just delete it, so don't waste your time, but it's so easy to do that. But if you have something you want to say, please do say it. Join in the discussion. Talk about Encumbrance. Tell us what you think. Do you even use it? Is it worth using? Well, you let me know what you think. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.